Good evening. It's January 26th. Welcome to the regular scheduled meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Call this meeting to order. Samantha, could we have a roll call, please?
Chris Balicki, Don Bemis,
Here.
Brandy Burrows,
Here.
Clark Gruber,
Here.
Lisa Kupiars, Amy Nichols,
Here.
Randy Timmer.
Here.
Did we hear from Chris and Lisa? I'd like to make a motion then to excuse Chris and Lisa.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? All right, motion passes. They are excused.
And I will do that for the rest of you if you call ahead.
Thank you, Clark.
You're welcome.
Does that mean I can go now? Oh.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? All right. We have an approved agenda. And moving on. Anybody would like to?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our regular meeting of December 22nd, 2025.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, excellent. Moving on. Interested citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. Is there anyone out there that wishes to speak on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will pass right on to unfinished business, which we have none, which now brings us to item 7, new business. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we are here to consider an application from Stacy Dupree, who has applied for a variance seeking relief from Section 220306 of the zoning ordinance regarding parking requirements for a short-term rental in a single-family dwelling. So the address for this is 79 Park Avenue, which is in the RM1 zoning district and in the short-term rental overlay district. There is a single-family dwelling that has been registered as a personal short-term rental since 2023, but the owners would now like to be able to apply for a Class 1 rental license, which would be similar to the previous business license, which would allow unlimited rentals. In order to do that, the property owner would first need to apply for a special land use permit from the Planning Commission, but one of the underlying requirements is on-site parking. And if you have read your packet, you would have learned that the dwelling at 79 Park does not technically have on-site parking. There is a driveway that is approximately half on, half off the parcel. There are about 11 feet of the driveway on the lot, so cars that are parked in what appears to be the parking for the dwelling unit are about halfway on the parcel and halfway in the municipal right-of-way. So in order to apply for the special land use permit, a variance from the parking requirement is necessary. There are 3 bedrooms in the home, so this does require 2 off-street parking spaces. The owner, Stacy Dupree, is here tonight, and we need to conduct a public hearing.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess let's jump right in here. Mr. Reeve, you want to come up and tell us a little bit about it?
First of all, thank you for having me tonight. I am the owner of 79 Park Avenue. It's been in my family for about 35 years. My mom passed away a couple years ago, and in order to keep it, I applied for a short-term rental license. I was told I could only get a personal license for 28 days because of the parking. I had different surveys done and things like that. Never occurred to me that the spots in front of the house were not part of our parcel, but evidently they're not. And so I'm really just here to try to get it formalized. And I'm requesting the variance to recognize that these long-established parking spaces in front of the home are my only functional parking. It requires no construction, no expansion, no changes to the neighborhood, no additional, traffic issues or anything like that, or more people in the home. So the hardship isn't self-created. It results from historical lot constraints and a past-city approval that eliminated a rear access. Lot 16, which is my lot, is physically constrained. The recorded legal description excludes the west 24 feet and the north 6 feet of the original platted lot. These reductions occurred long before my family purchased the home, and the removal of the north 6 feet in the front reduced my front yard depth. In terms of the rear, when my family first purchased the home, the property did have some rear access. That access was later eliminated when the last resort, which is now Watersview, excuse me, on lots 2 and 3 received a rear yard setback variance. Their egress structure was built directly against my lot, lot 16, the rear boundary, blocking the historic rear access corridor, including the 10-foot ingress and egress easement between lots 16 and 17. And that's documented in something that was provided, the county's LIBOR records. Once the egress was built, rear access to the lot was permanently removed. In terms of the front, Park Avenue is a one-way street that dead ends at lots 17 and 18. And there's kind of a grassy knoll there. They draw a straight line down that dead end through my property to determine the lot lines. So that combined with the historical remover, that is what causes the historic removal of the north 6 feet. So my lot is shallower in the front yard and has limited space for access. In addition to that, all of the on-street parking is designated to boaters. So, because it is on the harbor. So this means that the only remaining access to the home is through the front stairs, and the city designates the available parking again. It would be about a block and a half or 2 blocks away for street parking. So my request today is really just to formalize the only functional parking available to lot 16, so that I can meet the current requirements for Class 1 license. I'm not adding parking, expanding use, or increasing occupancy. I'm just maintaining what has existed safely for decades. And this variance corrects a hardship created by historic lot constraints and a past city approval. It allows me to continue operating responsibly, keep my home, and keep my longstanding place in the community. And the home is in a district that has historically supported lodging uses. So that's it. Thank you for your time and consideration. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I think if you want to have a seat for just a second, I think let's get the public hearing. I'm just going to say out of the way because I'm just assuming no one's speaking on it, but
You never know. We have had
Right.
people run down here in the last minute and
That's
run
true.
through the door.
That's true. So if we could have a motion maybe to open a public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing on 79 Park Ave.
Support.
It is moved and supported. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? All right, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And the public hearing is now closed. All right. All right. So, just had a feeling that was going to go fairly quick. So I guess at this time, if you want to maybe step back up for just a second here, I'm just assuming we're probably going to have some questions. Who wants to start out with their?
So, this has been in your family for 35 years,
1990.
1990, and then prior to that. So, were people parking in that area prior to you moving there as well?
Yes, that's my understanding when my parents bought the house.
Okay. Because I remember parking there when I used to walk by that to go to the Pancake House as a busboy and dishwasher back in the 70s,
Back in the day.
and people were parking there. Okay. So that has a long-standing use as,
If anybody parked there, they would actually be parking on my part of my lot as
yeah,
well. So,
that's,
yeah.
okay. It is unique and interesting. Okay, I just wanted to get some additional history, the way at least I remember it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one for Kelly, and that is for the special land use permit, what are the conditions that are required for a special land use permit for a rental like this?
So the primary condition is parking and that not having on-site parking is a condition that is currently preventing the application from even making it to the planning commission. Other conditions, I could look them up and read them directly to you so that I don't misstate something if you would like me to do that.
I don't really think that's necessary for me.
Okay.
That's the only sticking point then.
The primary sticking point right now is the lack of on-site parking.
Okay. The special land use typically is a little more difficult for people to get than other uses for the property, I believe, because of concerns that it's not really a standard use for the property. Is that correct? So the ordinance can impose additional conditions to keep it more or less in keeping with the neighborhood.
Yes. A special land use is a use that where there are conditions that could be a nuisance in some way and warrants additional consideration.
And in this case, it's only the parking.
So the parking is not a nuisance per se, but it is an underlying condition that has to be met in order to be granted the permit.
Thank you.
And it appears, if this was the middle of summer and you were there now and renting it over the weekend, we'd see two cars there now, 2 cars there yesterday, and 2 cars in the future. And if I walked by, I couldn't tell anything different from what would be parking there, just 2 cars.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did drive by today, and there was 1 car parked there, and there was obvious space for a second car to park next to it, even despite all the snowing.
I think if we asked 100 people and pointed at where the parking spaces are, we probably would maybe get one, because there's always the one who would go, well, I think if I went from the middle of the road out,
Yeah, there's always the one.
there's always one.
Yep.
There's a Griffin somewhere.
The walkway is on the boater side, so it doesn't impede, pedestrians at all.
I did take note of that as well, because that was my concern when I first reviewed the application in the packet, was pedestrian right-of-way tends to be an issue in areas of this town, and I don't think that would impede the way it's set up. There is no sidewalk on that area.
Yeah, they fortunately have one of the better walking paths,
Yeah.
even from a visual
Yeah.
standpoint.
I would agree.
So this to me brings up the question that obviously we're here because of the fact that it does not meet the parking requirement. However, because there has been 2 parking spots there, what we pretty much can deem forever, we are not by any means telling her that she can't park there. Is that correct or a fair assumption?
The city would not be saying that vehicles can't park there. It's just that the requirement is for the parking spaces to be on the lot.
Right. Where
On
these
site.
are 5/8 on the lot.
Bring up an image.
Yeah,
So the requirement is not technically met.
right. Gotcha.
And in the overhead, it looks like there would be room to go more westerly, but that topography is much higher
Right.
there, and there's a
Yeah.
retaining wall in
Yeah.
front of that vehicle on that map.
And in the past, we have had people cut into some of those areas and create issues with foundations and other people's
Right, yeah.
Which is a big
spot.
concern. There's a huge tree that's about 200 years old to the left, up the hill, and I can only imagine how deep those roots are. And it's an old house, so, it already is kind of on sandy soil. Yeah, I wouldn't want to, yeah. it would
And,
be
and
difficult.
there was a retail establishment next to that,
Yes.
in that house, that you could actually go and buy clothing and park in the, below it.
Where, that was a long time.
That was a
Way
while
be-
ago.
that pre-existed.
That was also back in the 70s, but yeah, you could buy duck boots there and,
Yeah.
I have a question for the applicant,
Yeah, go
if
right
I may. So you said that you got the permit in 2023, and that was a personal permit at the time. What was the decision-making at that time for the personal versus pursuing what was available as a business permit at that
It
time?
was the parking.
It was a parking at that time as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was going to be my question too, because technically, I think in my head that this has forced a change because you're changing from one permit to another kind of permit. So,
I'm sorry, not to interrupt. I might also add that the business licenses were lottery and frozen at the time as well. So if I had attempted to go for a variance at that time, I wouldn't have been able to really necessarily apply or get into a lottery because there were no business licenses being issued at that time for 2 years, yes.
Understood.
So now that things have kind of changed, it's opened it up. So,
gotcha. Okay.
One thing I find rather interesting is that if the parking on the street is reserved for the marina, whenever that was established, it essentially tacitly accepted this parking for the use of this residence. And if there had not been parking, most likely that would have been marina parking too. So the city has tacitly allowed parking in that space.
and knowing that there wasn't an opportunity in '23 to go after a business, you went for what you could.
right.
I'm looking at the images in the packet, starting on page 23 as well, and you can kind of see it in the overhead. You can also see that utilizing that municipal area to park doesn't put a standard vehicle size right up against the roadway either. There is still room there.
Okay, this is odd. This may be totally off the cuff, but what is if you've been parking there and basically had ownership of that land for so very long, is there a recourse to get it from the city somehow, that you would own all of that? And this would be a moot point.
Oh, I would love that. I don't know, is that an option?
I don't know, that's what I was asking.
No,
That
when I
would be
was on
great.
planning commission and city council, we really frowned upon that due to the fact that if it is city property, you never know what's going to happen next. And if a chunk of what had been city property suddenly isn't, it can throw a wrench in a lot of things down the road.
The little walls on the North Beach, when someone moved a wall and said, now, that's going to be my property.
Yes.
That was an issue a few years ago as well, saying the city never gave up that section. And that's when the gentleman decided to try to take over all of North Side. But yeah, it's a good
Yes.
point.
I mean, we also have been maintaining the space, so there's a retaining wall in front of the lot line to the right that is city property that we, at our expense, we replace the retaining wall, we put the flowers out, we do all of that. So we've always taken care of that as well.
So really, it's,
And the city didn't plow there, by the way. That's why the car looked like it was.
I mean,
It did.
to me, we're looking at city right away then.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
We're looking at city right away. We're not looking at a parcel by any means. This is just within the right of way.
This is municipal right-of-way, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
And how this varies from another recent application is we're not talking about city parking spaces that could be utilized by a beach goer or a boater. I
Right.
would imagine if I went and parked there, that would put my vehicle partially on private property and I would be towed away.
I would say that was very safe to assume.
Unless you had a very short car. Not that short, I'll bet.
And obviously, the house next door shares the same problem based on the line.
And we're surrounded by B&Bs other than the house to the left. We did at one time have rentals, long time ago, but carriage houses to the right or to the north and to the west is Waters View.
I suppose one thing that factors into this, these properties were platted long before the marina existed. And then the city could do whatever they wanted in whatever part of the area. So the line there, when those lots were platted, it didn't look at all like this. It would almost look like it made sense. Not anymore.
Right.
You put a curved marina in the middle of a straight line lot, things are going to go at strange angles.
And I don't know if it's because it's Park Avenue, like if it were Black River Street instead, if that would make a difference, but because everybody thinks we live on Black River.
And I wasn't even sure it was Park Avenue until this arrived in my inbox. You go, that's Park Avenue?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Like,
I was like, oh, it's Black River Street, yeah.
Yeah, deliveries, same thing, company.
All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
it would seem that maybe we should go down the list of questions.
Sounds good to me. You probably feel free to sit down for this part because it tends to take a minute. But yeah, I agree.
questions.
I think we can start into it if everyone's questions are answered at this point.
I think it's important that the applicant recognize that in this list of questions, if a single one comes out no, that's the end of the story. So what we have to do is go down the whole list to make sure that everything is satisfied in some way or other.
All right. So, starting right into it then. Number one, there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property.
Well, that one I have to say yes on, because, I mean, what other properties do we have that have half a driveway? That's
Well,
owned by the city at this rate.
There's probably more. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I would say in this case, the city has tacitly consented to those parking spaces.
Yeah.
And neither the city side of it nor the private side of it is adequate for a parking space in and of itself.
Right.
So there seems to have been a compromise made by the city along the line, and they have never apparently considered applying the same rules to it as they did for other parking up and down the street.
Yeah, I agree with that to a degree. The other thing that just blatantly glares at me is the fact that, you know, much on every one of our property, if you can park in the right of way all you want as long as you don't block the sidewalk. So this particular case, there is no sidewalk. There is nothing to say that you cannot park in the right of way as long as you don't block the sidewalk. Again, no sidewalk here. So yeah, I completely agree. I think there's exceptional circumstances to this. Any other comments on that before we move on to the next? All right. Number two, that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonable, practical, the formulation of a general regulations for such conditions or situations. Anyone?
No, this one is odd that, I can't see how we would formally be able to, or even practically formulate a general regulation.
Right. I think very much for the same reasons that we just listed in number one would occur with this as well. It's not that it's asking for anything that hasn't been there and or been used in that manner. It's just a matter of now finding out it's technically not owned by.
I would state one caution, though, that we need to consider with all this, and that's called adverse possession. I do not think that we should word this in such a way that somebody somewhere down the road could say, well, you consented, therefore it's mine, because you have not
Well,
imposed your will upon it, even though you own it. I think the attorney would like to say something.
Yeah, municipal property cannot be acquired
right.
through adverse possession. A private property owner cannot adversely possess government property.
That's reassuring.
If someone were to attempt to argue that, they would lose very quickly.
I like your
And that's what happened on the North Beach. That's exactly what happened on the North Beach.
All right. So that's basically two of us saying that. Any other?
Yeah, agree.
Agree.
Okay.
Agree.
All right. Moving on, then number 3, that such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property right, similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and vicinity.
I would say true from the standpoint this is even the overlay district, and all we're talking about are 2 parking spaces that we've already looked at and thought these parking spaces have been here a very long time. It's not like we're suddenly making a change to allow parking. The use has been there. We now realize that,
Right.
and by allowing this, and then also later on, we are also still acknowledging it is city's property and you can't adversely take. But I would say yes in this particular case. We have to look at these individually, and especially that area. Like I said, there was a business next door. There's places along that entire area where this is the normal use of property in that area.
I have another question for Kelly on this. If this were not with regard to a short-term rental, and it were strictly a residential property, if the property owner were to remove those parking spaces, would they even be permitted to use that as a residence?
Yes. Yes, there are other properties in the city of South Haven where there is no on-site parking, and those properties are still permitted to be used as dwelling units.
Right.
It's considered
but-
non-conforming.
Right, but they already have no parking, or,
Right, and nothing would change here.
if this parking were to disappear and a lawn went in there,
And a lawn went in there, is what you're
Right.
saying. Okay, well, conditions would change at that
Yes.
point, and I would not want to speculate on that at this moment.
so we're kind of in the same situation there, I think, that
Yeah.
we can even look at this as to the residential use of the property and those parking
Absolutely.
spaces.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. So. All right. Moving on. Number 4. That strict compliance with the requirements of this ordinance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or would render conformity unnecessarily burdensome. I think that jumps straight back to what we just talked about.
This might be the trickier one. because they can use the property without a short-term rental.
They can.
What's being asked for here is a special use to permit another use of the property.
Second.
And they've already got a short-term
Right.
use. This is literally taking it from the 28 days
Right.
to 365 days as a business. But I don't,
But we're not making that final decision.
we're not.
Right.
We're not.
We're making the decision on whether they can continue that application path
Right.
and be seen by planning commission.
Yep.
And that's that permitted use. They're really pushing for that. This is the overlay district for the entire city.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And again, I go
what's
back
around it.
to, we're not talking about municipal city spaces. These,
Exactly.
more than half of this area is private
Right.
parking. And even if we deny this application, there will continue to be 2 cars parked there.
Exactly.
The only difficulty that could arise would be if the city decided to reconfigure the entire area and say move the street over. That would remove 2 parking spaces, the only 2 parking spaces.
Which at that time would
Yeah.
be a problem for that time, I guess.
As long as the city doesn't prevent ingress and egress
That's true, for
into
your half
there.
a car.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they can get 1 car. If they're
they go
really,
sideways.
really good at, yeah,
Yeah.
really, really good at parking.
Parallel parking is going to
Parallel
be your
parking.
friend, yes.
And then I don't know where the trash containers would go, you know.
All right. So, moving on. The variance will not be significantly detrimental to adjacent property and the surrounding neighborhood.
So I'm going to say that that has been met because, again, we're not talking about any type of changes. We're talking about 2 parking spaces that exist, have existed, would continue to exist. However, we did receive an email from a resident neighbor in that area that came in late, so is not in the packet, and I'll read it into the record. This email says, "We are against the non-use variance being sought for the property of 79 Park. From what we see, the owners of the property have enjoyed their family retreat for many years. It isn't until they decided to take an established family and turn it into a mega rental that they need a special variance for parking. According to what information was provided by the family, they have lived, loved, and enjoyed the home and parking the way it is. They know what they have. Please do not allow them to push more mega rentals into our neighborhood. Hold the line on property zoning. Keep the owners and neighborhoods true to themselves. Please do not allow this request. Thank you." And again, that's not my opinion.
Right.
I'm not wanting to create any emotional responses here because our directive is very clear and succinct, but you know, we do want to make sure all voices are heard, so I wanted to make sure to share that since they did not make it out for a public hearing.
Absolutely. All right, so we have Brandy on being not significantly detrimental. I have to agree. I mean, there's a couple of bed and breakfasts surrounding it. According to her, one neighbor to the, that'd be the south there. Get a little directionally challenged in that. Yeah, again, it's in the overlay district. It has been a rental. I don't see how we can say that it would be significantly detrimental.
Concur.
I mean, the only argument would be that you're going from 28 days up to many more days, but someone could live there full-time year-round with 2 vehicles, 365 days.
Exactly.
And I don't think you really have any difference. You're really splitting hairs at that point.
Yep.
So that brings us to number 6.
Before we get beyond that one, I do have to say, I live next to a rental. And there seems to be a different volume level that you hear from next door if it's a family than if it is 6 or 8 people showing up and having a good time. So that, I think that's one of the bigger complaints about short-term rentals in general. They can increase the ruckus factor in a neighborhood.
Noted. All right. So, number 6, the variance will not impair the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
I believe that's been met based off of the uniqueness of the topography and grade and this municipal right-of-way creating this perfect storm for a shallow driveway. This is quite uncommon.
That, and we've already had a long history of actual use of the parking spaces as parking spaces, and we're not going above and beyond that physical normal use. I concur as well.
The discussion on that? All right. Moving on then, that the variance requested is the minimum amount necessary to overcome or mitigate the difficulty.
It sounds like the minimum. I think you said something about 5/8 of each space.
Well, just based
Now
on
we're
a-
3/8 of each space.
Based on a 20-foot space, and
Yeah.
it was 11 feet, just roughly.
Yeah,
So maybe closer to 9/16.
I think this is certainly the minimum amount, and, even if you look at the size of the right-of-way there with the photographs, there's even more room beyond the cars that provide at least ingress and egress for any emergency vehicles.
Right.
Furthermore, mitigation in this case would have to involve extending the space on the front, and large trees have a tendency to fall over if you cut their roots, and they sometimes will take the house with them. And with the grade there, it would be not only expensive, but extremely difficult, I think, to come up with a trustworthy extension of the front of that parking space.
I concur. True.
All right. And the last one. The immediate practical difficulty causing the need for the variance was not created by any affirmative action of the applicant, i.e. not self-created.
The only thing that might argue on that is that the affirmative action of the applicant is to request a full-time short-term rental in an area where a special land use is required for it.
Right.
But as it exists now,
And having actually wanting to do it in 23,
Right.
we may have created that.
I was just going to
Which
say, I
is
was prepared to
new-
really argue
more
this
new
one.
information.
I was really prepared to argue this one coming in, like, hey, it was the switch from one STR to another choice that did that. But having heard that you tried before, I feel a little better in that, you've kind of been stymied by the system a little. So I feel better about that this wasn't allowed then, and, now we at least have a reasonable accommodation to allow that, so.
And the applicant didn't create the topography or grade of that parcel. They didn't put in like a big fountain or something that's preventing them from putting the driveway there.
or the easement changes to the back. I seem to vaguely remember when the last resort thing was coming through on that, and it was kind of a messy business all around.
That was the
Things are
first.
often in that neighborhood.
That was one of the first B&Bs.
That was
isn't
the
it?
very first bed and
So I
breakfast
could
in
see
town.
where a lot, that was new.
All right. Well. All right. So, having moved through our list, anyone, and I'm looking at the two of you right now, anyone prepared to make a motion on this?
I worked too hard.
Oh.
I worked too hard today.
Oh.
I did not write those
Wow.
down, Randy. You're so good at it.
I have a question for council.
Absolutely.
Do we need any verbiage in a potential motion to approve this application to prevent anything that would insinuate any kind of taking?
Well, they can't take, government property.
We're covered enough by that. We don't need to shore up anything in a
Okay.
motion. That's my question.
Correct. And ultimately, even if you were to grant the variance, you're not granting permission to use the right-of-way. The ZBA doesn't have permission to bind the city to use the right-of-way. You're simply, if you were to grant the variance, indicating that for purposes of short-term rental, the property owner doesn't have to use that, doesn't have to provide the number of parking spaces that would otherwise be required. If that makes sense. But you're not affirmatively saying that people can park in that area of the right-of-way.
That-
And
that
that's
answers my question.
outside of the scope of what the ZBA can do. And in theory, at some point down the road, the city could not allow it anymore, and
Right.
then the property owner would have to deal with it at that point. But that's outside of the scope of what we're considering tonight.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something simple that could really muddle things up.
And if that were to happen, and it were strictly being used as a single-family property at that time, the property owner would still be dealing with the same situation.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the dimensional non-use variance request for 79 Park Avenue to allow an exemption of up to 2 parking spaces in order to pursue a special land use permit application with the Planning Commission based on the uncommon topography and grade of the lot. And this application is not so common as an ordinance would be necessary to regulate the situation. And it is the minimum amount necessary.
I'll second.
Do you feel like you have enough in that?
I mean, it's up to the board if you want to go into more detail with respect to any of the other factors. Otherwise, if you believe that covers all of the factors, then that would be sufficient.
Okay.
I think that does. I err on the side of denial, really being solid on where we need to be, but I think we've talked through that. I'm good with it.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Always like to make sure. So, I have a motion, we have a second. And Samantha, if we could have a roll call, please.
Bemis,
Yes.
Burrows,
Yes.
Gruber,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Timmer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Congratulations. Actually, one step closer.
Good luck with plan.
Yeah. All right. So, moving on. Wow. Number 8, commissioner comments. Wow, that went really quick. Brandy, you want to start off tonight?
No comment this evening.
Whoa. Mr. Bemis?
I tend to be very reluctant to grant variances, especially in cases where maybe it's not really necessary. In this case, the city has tacitly accepted essentially a parking space slopping over the city line, to the extent that the city did not impose anything when they were reassigning other parking up and down the street. And under the circumstances, if the parking is adequate for a short-term rental, I reluctantly agree that in this case, it's understandable.
Clark?
Yeah, this one really surprised me, having been by there 1,000 times. But I'm glad we had a chance to review that. Something interesting was said about parking aprons, you know. And that is really, really interesting because, you know, in my neighborhood, if you can park your car on the parkway in your own driveway, it certainly gets it out of the street. It certainly gets it out of the sidewalk, which is very important. We pay a lot of money to take care of our sidewalks. However, to say that that is an official parking space, you know, it's not. I'm not advocating it, but, you know, it was interesting to have that discussion brought up. So good job, staff, and thank you, Brandy, for making the motion.
Thanks, Brandy. Taking one for the team again. No other comments.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you. Once again, good meeting, fairly quick, and that's about all I have. So
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
it's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, excellent. We are adjourned.
We are adjourned. Okay, my husband says that was not him.